State your name for the record, please.
Bradley Dixon.
On December 6, 2014, were you the EMT that responded to Heron Road?
Yes, sir.
And who was the paramedic on board with you?
Josh Perkins.
And I believe a run report was done for MedStat. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Who prepared that report for MedStat?
Josh did.
Okay, so you did not prepare a report. Josh prepares it for you?
Correct.
I'm going to ask you, when you arrived on the scene at Heron Road, tell the jury what you saw as you were coming in.
So, of course, there's going to be fire trucks there. There was a few fire trucks there. A couple personal vehicles. I guess first responders showed up in their own vehicles.
Is that typical?
Yeah, on certain calls, especially far out in the county.
What was this particular call in reference to?
We got the call as a car fire and a possible burn patient.
All right, go ahead.
So when we pulled up on scene, I parked beside one of the fire engines. When I arrive on scene, I try to look for possible patients. I don't pay attention to, outside. That's not my responsibilities to pay attention to, such as a car fire. So I didn't notice that right away. When I got out, I saw a couple firemen behind the fire engine kneel down beside what turned out to be the patient.
When you saw the patient, what was your first thought?
That we need a helicopter.
Why was that?
Helicopter is used for severe patients. Since we're in a rural area, helicopter gets them to where they need to be quicker than what we can.
Describe her condition to the jury as you saw it.
When I first laid eyes on her, her condition was very poor. She was burned from the parts of her body that I saw first was completely burned. I didn't notice any part of her body that wasn't burned.
Describe the area of her mouth.
Her lips were real leathery, almost charred. Her face was third-degree burns. Eyelashes were gone. Eyebrows were gone. Her hair was a singed mass.
When you said you knew immediately you needed a helicopter, who do you relay that information to?
I relay it to my partner, Josh, make sure that's, because ultimately it's his decision.
Who got to look at her first, you or Josh?
I don't recall.
Now, did Josh ultimately call for the helicopter?
He told me that he is okay with that decision, so then I went to the ambulance to get on the radio to tell our dispatch to call the helicopter.
When you have a burn victim, what do you do inside the ambulance?
Normally, we have to start IVs, keep the patient very warm. The sterile burn sheets are used to limit infection risk and provide oxygen.
Did you do anything to the temperature controls inside the vehicle?
I did. I turned the heat all the way up.
Tell us how that works in an ambulance. Is it different than a car?
It is. You have one dial that has numbers on it, 65 to 85, and you just pick the temperature that you want.
So the heat was running?
Yes, sir.
Did you ever get out of the ambulance to help them load
No, sir.
the lady in?
No, sir.
Okay. Tell us what you did once she was loaded into the ambulance.
Once she was loaded in, I turned the oxygen tank on, hooked up the oxygen mask. Also handed Josh, my partner, the IV setup, the IV supplies that you need to start an IV with. And
did Casey also get in the ambulance with you?
Yes, sir.
So you had two paramedics inside the ambulance?
Correct.
Did anybody else, what I call poke their head in or come in the ambulance?
They did.
Who was that?
Daniel Cole.
And was Daniel trying to talk to the young lady?
He was.
What was he saying?
Asking her, who did this to you?
And you said she had her oxygen on, is that correct?
Correct.
Where were you sitting?
I was at the head of her.
Okay. Was she able to respond at all?
She was.
And what did you hear her say?
The first time she responded, couldn't hardly hear her because of the oxygen mask and all the noise that was in the ambulance. So we had to ask her a couple times. Daniel was poking his head through the door, and I was leaning down to talk to her in her ear, just relaying what he was asking.
Describe her voice at that point.
Raspy. You could tell it was dry. You could tell her mouth was burnt, trouble speaking.
So was she speaking like me and you are right now?
No, sir.
Did you have trouble understanding what she said?
Yes, sir.
Did you ask her to repeat herself several times?
I did.
Ultimately, I believe Josh put in his report, and you thought you heard a name. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And what name did you believe you heard?
Eric.
Out of all the time y'all were in the ambulance, how many words do you think you were able to make out?
Maybe 3.
Outside of Eric, what were the other 2 words?
Thirsty and cold.
And in regards to her saying thirsty, was she able to enunciate that?
No, sir. You could make out that it was a 2-syllable word that sounded like thirsty. And I then asked her, "Are you saying you're thirsty?" And she acknowledged with a head up and down.
When you say thirsty, your tongue hits the top of your mouth. Is that right?
Correct.
Was she struggling in that capacity?
Correct.
What did thirsty sound like to you?
Thirsty.
And what other word were you able to realize?
Cold.
Is that typical of a burn patient?
It is.
Your Honor, I tender the witness.
Cross.
So you were the driver that day.
Correct.
What does that appear to be to you that's before you?
Patient care report.
Okay. If you will, look sort of midway the page, and it talks about response times and mileage. You recognize that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And if you will, what time does it appear that you arrived at the scene?
2029.
Okay. And so tell me what 2029 is.
8:29
That would be 8:20
p.m.
Okay. PM. Okay. And the next thing would be what time did you arrive at patient?
20:30 or 8:30 p.m.
8:30. Okay. Then the next time would be you departing. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. What time would that be?
20:42 or 8:42 p.m.
And then it has arrival at destination. What would that be?
20:44 or 8:44 p.m.
Okay. So basically, you got there at scene about 8:29. A minute passed, correct? When you got to Miss Jessica, which would be 8:30.
Correct.
And then departed about 12 minutes after that, correct?
Correct.
And then looks like it was a little bit longer going from when you departed to probably the arrival at the church.
Correct.
Correct. At the time that you were with Miss Jessica in the ambulance, you did hear her use the name Eric.
Correct.
I tended the witness, Your Honor.
Redirect.
No further questions, Your Honor. I would ask that Mr. Dixon be finally released. Sorry, Captain.
Sir, you're finally excused. You may leave the courtroom or you can stay. Your choice. Yes, sir. Let me call you next witness.
What is your name?
Joshua Perkins.
So on December the 6th, 2014, you were a paramedic.
Correct.
Do you recall getting toned out to respond to an area on Heron Road?
Yes, sir, I do.
When you got toned out, what was the nature of the tone that you received?
I believe it was a female with burns. There was not a very much specific information initially.
Okay. Tell the jury what you found upon your arrival at our own Heron Road.
We pulled up to Heron Road. There was a volunteer firefighter pumper truck there on scene, several people around her. Jessica was wrapped up in blankets at the back of the fire truck as we pulled up. I was in the front passenger seat, had my partner in the driver's seat. The way we pulled up, he could see her out his window. He looked out the window and turned around, looked at me and said, "It's real," as it's real bad. So I got out of the truck when there were laid eyes on her. Yeah, it's real bad. Called for a helicopter. There's no hospital anywhere near here that can treat her appropriately. So
When you say it's real bad, what did you see about Jessica? Let me ask you this.
Well,
Did you know Jessica at the time?
no, sir.
Okay. And you learned her name subsequent to treating her. Is that correct?
I believe we got it. She didn't mention, she was able to tell us her name
Okay.
while we were there. Yes, sir.
I'll get to that in a minute then.
Okay.
All right. What about what you were observing of her on the ground made you think immediately that you needed a helicopter?
Well, I did notice there was burns, a significant amount of burns on her body. At the time, there was not much of any hair left on her head. Looking at pictures of her before and after, it's a significant difference. Now, I thought it was somebody with a short haircut until I got her in the back of the truck in proper lighting. You can see how severe her hair was burned away. But there on the ground, I could see that she was burned significantly and needed to be somewhere else in a different hospital.
And where did you notice the majority of the burns to be?
Oh, they were pretty much head to toe on her body, sir.
Okay, Josh, if you would go to the page after your narrative, and there appear to be 4 drawings on that page.
Yes, sir.
Does that look familiar?
Yes, sir.
And there appear to be large number of numbers. I think it goes up to 32, or no, excuse me, up to 42. Is that, or excuse me, 51.
51 is the highest I'm seeing, yes, sir.
And what does these drawings depict?
Well, if you'll continue on to the next page, you can
Right.
see each site is has a list, and the list what the site number is that corresponds with the pictures there. It lists which injury site it is. For example, number 1 is the upper extremity. It lists injury details. On this one, I put a burn char on the left bicep. If it's the way these are listed, you can, if it's a burn charring, as if it's listed as that, you can put it as a 3rd-degree burn. Burn blister would be a 2nd-degree burn on here, and I believe there's redness, which would be 1st degree.
So what I'm showing to the jury here is the diagrams or the locations of the burns that you noted as you were examining her and after you examined her and after you were writing the after incident report. Is that correct?
Yes.
So then you go to the next page, and each number that you see on the previous page now has a description of what the burns were that you observed on the body. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
When you were with her on the ground, did you do an assessment?
Yes, sir, what little bit I could. The lighting's not very well. She was wrapped up in the blanket, as I said. Pretty much looked at her and said, we've got a significant amount of burns. We need to keep her warm. At that point in time, we were unloading our stretcher, all our gear and everything, the burn sheets that we use for burn victims. And we placed her in that, wrapped her up in them, and got them in the truck, cut the heater on. Losing body heat's a big significant issue with people with burns like this, so we try to keep her as warm as possible with the burn sheets and the heater in the truck.
All right, when you got into the back of the ambulance, were you talking to her?
Yes, sir. We were trying to ask her, simple assessment questions, establish her mental status, things of that nature.
Right.
She was able to tell us her name. Anything.
How was describe her voice for me as you were attempting to talk with her?
Her voice was garbled whenever she was trying to talk to us. One can imagine she's probably inhaled a fair amount of hot heated gases, during this whole burning process. There was soot in her airway as well whenever we looked in there. She could talk, but she had trouble enunciating certain syllables. It was real garbled whenever she spoke.
And did she in fact tell you her name?
Yeah, I remember clearly understanding Jessica. She had said Chambers, and I didn't understand it, but somebody else had asked her Chambers, and then she said yes. I remember that.
Okay, and then what about, did you recall Daniel Cole being in there?
Not specifically, no, sir.
In your ambulance?
I'm sure he was, but I don't specifically remember.
Okay, do you remember anybody asking her who did this to you?
Yes, several people asked her that.
Okay, and do you remember any response that she might have had?
She said Eric, or tried to say Eric or Derek or something to that effect with those syllables.
Okay. And what other life-saving treatments were you attempting to give her?
We attempted to, outside of keeping them warm, you need to give them fluids as well. I could not find a vein on her body to start a regular IV on her, so we moved on to intraosseous access, which is the IV through a bone, basically. We're unable to do that as well. I was unable to drill. We have a drill, and it was unable to penetrate her tibia when we tried that.
In her leg?
In her leg, yes, sir.
Okay. At some point in time, so when y'all were actually on the hill, I called up on the hill where the fire was, you were unable to get any fluids into her. You were only able to get the burn blanket on and get her ready to be transported. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. We tried the IO right before we transported, 2 minutes before.
And the IO is?
The intraosseous, the bone IV.
Eventually, you did transport her. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And where did you transport her?
It was we ended up in the Shiloh Baptist Church parking lot. I believe it was 0.6 miles from where the scene was.
And what did you do upon your arrival at the landing zone?
At the landing zone, people were still questioning there. Somebody with the law enforcement was taking pictures. I think at that point we were simply just awaiting the helicopter to get there. We were watching her airway. Another issue with burn victims is their airway will begin to swell. They'll have breathing problems, and we were making sure that was not occurring. We were just monitoring her airway and waiting on the helicopter.
Do your notes reflect what time the helicopter got there?
I don't think they do specifically, no, sir.
Okay. I believe Bradley testified it wasn't real long after y'all got there. The helicopter got there. Would you agree with that?
I agree with that. It wasn't a significant amount of time, no, sir.
What would be the protocols upon the helicopter arriving? Who actually takes control of the patient at the time the helicopter gets there?
I believe officially, as soon as the highest level of care there arrives, it's technically their patient from that point forward. When they arrive, they bring their cardiac monitor, all their equipment. We're taking ours off, putting theirs on. I told them we were having trouble getting the IV access, and they had their IO, which is functional, and they were able to put in 2 IOs. And outside of that, once we did that, we put her on their cot, loaded her on our stretcher, and put her in the aircraft, and they lifted.
Okay. Your Honor, tender the witness.
Cross.
Good afternoon, Mr.
Good afternoon,
Perkins. You don't have any idea of what time the firefighters and other possible paramedics got to the scene before you got there?
Nothing official, not on my paperwork that I have. I just have the times that I got there, ma'am.
Yes. But based on the paperwork that you do have, you know that you didn't get there until about 8:29 or 8:30.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And if you will, you still have the report in your hand.
Yes, ma'am, I
correct?
do.
Okay. Of which you authored this particular report.
Yes, ma'am.
Correct? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Perkins.
Yes, ma'am.
I tender the witness.
Redirect.
Just briefly, Your Honor. The sounds that you were hearing that you indicate were clear.
Yes, sir.
Okay, those were done by stethoscope, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And those were internally in the lungs, is that correct?
Yes, sir. That's what I'm listening for.
And you can't say whether or not her tongue was swollen or were her lips burned?
They just had soot. I hate to guess at this point if they were burned or not. I know her airway was not swollen shut like a typical burn victim. A lot of them have. That's what I meant by she was maintaining her own airway. It was not swollen. She was able.
And if it had been swollen shut, what kind of airway would you attempt to get in?
We had attempted to intubate her, endotracheal intubation.
And the sounds, though, that Ms. Palmer just asked you about were in the lung area that appeared to be clear at this point in time. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Did you expect those, due to her condition, to get worse?
Yes, sir. Honestly, I would. I would expect swelling and edema to start in eventually, and she would start having other than clear breath sounds. Yes.
Nothing further, Your Honor. He may be filing excuse.
Sir, you're fine. Excuse. You're free to remain in the courtroom if you'd like. We may call you next witness.
What is your name?
Their house.
Were you with the sheriff's department or working the evening of December the 6th of 2014?
Yes, sir.
And were you dispatched to an area on Heron Road?
Yes, sir.
And what was the nature of the call that you received?
It was a vehicle fire, and it was a person that was set on fire.
You need to speak up because these folks all the way back over here got to hear you. You're soft. I known you a long time, and you're soft spoken until you getting on somebody, right? All right. So the nature of your call was a car on fire and that somebody had been burned. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
What did you find upon your arrival on Heron Road?
Well, when I got there, the ambulance and EMTs, they was all there, and when I got there, like I said, she was already in the ambulance, and Daniel Cole said they was finna transport her down to the church before she can be airlifted out.
So you actually made the scene on top of the hill where the car was?
Yes, sir.
All right, tell the jury how the scene was when you got there.
Well, when I got there, it was a vehicle. It was pulled off the side of the road, close to a green fence, and it was the EMT. They was still putting out, was smoking. And,
Okay. And were there a lot of vehicles there when you got there?
it was the fire department, the ambulance. That's all was there when I made it there.
Were there some personal vehicles there that belonged to the firefighters?
Yes, sir.
And is Heron Lane, once you get out of Cortland, it is a fairly narrow road.
It is.
Okay. And were cars parked on either side of the road as you were going up?
Yes, sir. It was.
Okay. When you got up to where the fire was, did you call it? Where did you park?
I parked almost behind the ambulance, kind of off to the side.
And what did you observe once you got, besides the car you just testified to, what else did you observe at the scene?
They said the vehicle was on fire. They was putting it out. But I observed.
All right, what about Miss Chambers? Did you see Jessica?
No, sir, I didn't see her. Not up on the, when I made it to the scene, I didn't see her because they hadn't put her in the ambulance.
All right, at any point did you get in the ambulance?
Yes, sir.
Was it on the hill or was it down the hill but the landing zone?
Is at the landing zone?
So when you get, if I understand your testimony correctly, you pull up, you see the car on fire, and you're advised that Jessica's in the ambulance. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Did you talk to anybody at the scene at that point trying to figure out what happened?
Daniel Cole stated to me that there was a female that had got burned, and they was finna transport her to the landing zone down there.
And what was your thought process at the time? Were you thinking that you may have a crime scene, or was a crime been committed, or what was your main duty at that time?
I was just trying to know. I didn't know it was gonna be a crime scene. I was just trying to find out, what had happened.
Okay. And did you assist them with transporting her back down to the landing zone?
Yes, sir.
Okay. In other words, by assist, did you drive your car ahead of the ambulance down to the landing zone?
Yes, sir.
And once you got to the landing zone, what did you do?
When I got there, I went inside the ambulance. I started taking photos of it, and I asked her some questions. What happened? Who did this to you?
And did she respond?
Yes, sir.
And did you know Jessica?
No, sir, I didn't know her.
Did you know her dad?
Yes, sir, I knew her dad.
And where did her dad work at the time?
I know the county sheriff's department.
And what was Ben's responsibility with the sheriff's department?
Mechanic.
When you got in the ambulance and you asked her what was going on, or who did this to you, did she respond?
Yes, sir.
And what did you hear?
She said, I asked her who did this to you, and she said, Eric.
Were other people in the ambulance with you?
It was the medics in there, the EMTs, they was in there.
Was Daniel in there?
No, sir, he wasn't in there.
Okay. Eventually, did Chuck Tucker come in with you?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And Chuck's a deputy with the sheriff's department too.
Yes, sir.
Was Chuck standing with you when you were asking the question, who did this to you?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So Chuck heard her say, or should have heard her say, Eric as well. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Tend to the witness, Your Honor.
Cross?
You got into the ambulance, correct, and spoke to Miss Jessica.
Yes, ma'am.
And at that point, she was able to state to you that Eric had done this to her.
Yes, ma'am. That's what she said.
Yes. I attended the witness, Your Honor.
Redirect?
No, sir. He may be finally excused.
All right, officer, you're found excused. You may return to duty or stay in the courtroom, whatever your boss tells you to do. You may call your next witness.
What is your name?
Chuck Tucker.
And were you on duty on the night of December the 6th of 2014?
I was.
And did you receive a call to go to Heron Road in Cortland?
Yes.
And what was the nature of the call?
Car fire and a female that had been burned.
When you got there, where did you go?
Well, I went to the scene, and as I was pulling up, the ambulance was pulling off, and Deputy House was pulling off following the ambulance. And I pulled up, and I was on the phone with Major Thompson. And he told me to go to the landing zone and see if I could get any information.
Okay.
So I turned around and followed the ambulance and stuff down.
So when you got there, Jessica, which you didn't know was Jessica at the time, but Jessica was being transported from the hill down to the landing zone.
Yes,
Where did you go?
I went down to the landing zone then.
Okay. And when you got there, what did you do?
I got inside the ambulance.
Okay. And as you begin, did you know who it was at that point?
Yes.
And did you know Jessica?
Yes, I did.
And did you know Ben, her dad?
Yes.
And how long had you known Jessica?
Since she was a baby.
Okay. How did this affect you when you got in there, Chuck?
It was nerve wracking to see somebody you knew that was burnt like that.
And describe for the jury what you saw of her body.
She had skin hanging all over, and her face and hair was singed, and it was bad.
You ever seen anything like that before?
No, not while they're still alive.
And did you begin to talk to Jessica?
Yes, I did.
And what did you ask her?
I asked her who did this, and she said Eric.
Okay. Well, describe for the jury how loud or low her voice was.
Well, she was real mumbled and very low, and she couldn't say, a whole lot, but she told me that, and I asked her, Eric who, and she said she didn't know.
Okay.
And I had asked her if she knew who I was, and she told me yes.
Okay. And did you ask her any other questions?
Well, I had got out of the ambulance because the sheriff had called my phone and talked to the sheriff for a minute. And then the sheriff told me to find out if he was black or white. So I got back in the ambulance and asked her if he was black or white, and she said black.
Okay. And at this point, once you got this basic information, did you get out of the ambulance?
I did.
Okay. And were you there when the air evac people arrived?
Yes, me and the sheriff were standing outside when they got there.
When you said you called the sheriff on the phone, was he en route?
Well, he had called me while I was in the ambulance the first time. That's the reason I stepped out of the ambulance to answer the phone, talk to the sheriff. And then when I got out, the sheriff was already there.
Okay, so he was en route.
He was en route, yes.
Okay. Tender the witness, Your Honor.
Cross?
I attended the witness, Your Honor.
Redirect?
No, sir. And he may be finally excused.
All right, officer, you can be found excused. Thank you, sir. Call your next.
What is your name?
Edward Dixon.
So back on December the 6th of 2014, were you head of investigations?
Yes, sir, I was.
And on that evening, did you receive a call? And I believe it was Saturday night. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Did you receive a call concerning a car fire and a young lady that had been burned?
Yes, sir, I did.
Edward, describe for the jury, please, what you observed upon your arrival at the scene.
When I arrived on the scene, I think the firemen had pretty much had put the fire out.
Once I saw that, I went ahead and got my crime scene tape out and secured the area once I got there.
Okay, and describe what you were looking at when you got there.
When I arrived on the scene, there was a vehicle. I wasn't sure the color of the vehicle because it was completely burned. It was kind of pulled up, kind of wedged in between a couple of trees, maybe. Not trees, but there was a tree on the side and one in front of the vehicle. It was completely burned.
Now, Edward, as a trained investigator, one of the first things you do is to make a walkthrough of your area. Is that correct?
Make a walk through the area and secure the area as best you can.
Okay. And during your walkthrough, what are you actually looking for during your initial walkthrough?
Anything that might be evidence or that might, when you get there, you don't know what's really going on. You treat all areas like a crime scene. So then you secure the area and you start marking anything that might be related to this particular crime.
Okay. And did you notice anything else there other than the car?
I noticed the car. I noticed items that were on the ground, cigarette lighters, cell phone, beer cans, stuff like that.
Okay. And did you begin to photograph some of the things that you were observing?
Yes, sir, I did.
And also, how do you, when you see a piece of what you think may be evidence laying on the ground, how do you go about marking it so that you can identify it later?
We have markers in our units from 1 to 100, and your first item that you mark is going to be number 1. And you continue going until you feel like you've got all the evidence marked.
And are there like little cones with numbers on them?
There are
Or little markers with cones on them?
Yes, sir.
And did you do that in this particular case?
Yes, sir, I did.
All right, let's go and talk about the vehicle for a minute. Did you go up close to the vehicle?
Yes, sir, I did.
And did you actually take up close photographs of the vehicle?
Yes, sir, I did.
Okay. Did you also notice, you just talked about cell phone. Where did you observe the cell phone?
The cell phone was maybe 2.5 feet, maybe, from the driver's side door on the ground.
And was there any other parts of cell phones located around?
There was the back of the cell phone and the cell phone itself.
And you mentioned a lighter a minute ago, is that correct?
Yes, sir. I think there was 2 lighters, one orange, and I have to look at my evidence to see what color the other one might have been.
And did you actually photograph those?
I did mark those and photograph those also.
Edward, I'd like for you to look at this board, please. And look at this board for me real quick and tell me if you can identify what's on this board.
I see the burned vehicle. Number 2 is going to be your cell phone. It would have been an LG cell phone. Number 4 is going to be a lighter. Number 3 is going to be the back of the cell phone, and number 5 is also another lighter.
And that's what you just described for the jury that you observed at the scene. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Your Honor, I would offer this as an exhibit to this witness's testimony.
Any objection from counsel? All right, there being no objection, will be marked and admitted.
Could I get Investigator Dixon to come down, Lieutenant Dixon to come down and
Yes, you may. Officer, you can stand down and counsel's request.
All right, Edward, describe in the top 3 pictures for the jury what they are looking at in those photographs. Edward, describe for the jury, please, what we're looking at in the top 3 pictures.
This is the burned vehicle once I arrived on the scene. This is the driver's side door where it's just got just a little space for the driver to get out on this side of the door. This is also the driver's side door. It was just partially open when I arrived on the scene. This is going to be the rear passenger side of the vehicle.
All right, Edward, there's something noticeable in this middle picture here. What is this right here?
That's a pine tree, oak tree, or something of that nature.
And it appears to be relatively close to the door.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Okay. And then what is on the other side of this vehicle on the passenger driver's side, or the passenger front and passenger back?
It's kind of like a wooded area. It had trees and bushes on it. passenger side.
Was there anything else over there?
I would have to reflect back to the picture. I can't
Was there a
remember.
fence over there?
There could be a fence line there.
All right. Now, when you go, you described a minute ago that the phone, which I assume is depicted right here, number 2,
That's correct.
and then number 3 is the back of the phone that you just described.
Yes, sir.
Here.
Yes.
All right. Where in relation to this middle picture here was the phone?
It's going to be maybe 2.5 maybe feet from the driver's side door here.
Was it near that tree?
Yes, it was.
And then the back of the phone, which is depicted as number 3, where in this area was
It's
it
going to
located?
be not much further from the phone itself. Like I said, it's maybe 2.5, 3 feet from the vehicle, and then just maybe another foot outside from the phone.
And so these two pieces, are they very close to each other?
Yes, sir, they are.
All right, and this appears here to be the back that fits here on the phone. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And it was not attached to the phone.
No, sir, it wasn't.
Now, the lighters that you indicated in 4 and 5, what proximity were they in to the car?
They was pretty close to the vehicle. One lighter was just kind of outside the vehicle, and the other one was maybe a few feet away. You can see where it was kind of it's like it's been there for a while. We still collected anyway because we weren't sure if it had anything to do with the crime scene.
Edward, during the course of the investigation, were you able to determine who that phone belonged to?
It was near the area. I feel like it belongs to the victim.
Okay, and were you able later in
Yes,
this
sir.
investigation?
Yes, sir, I was.
So that night, did you know whether that phone belonged to Jessica or not?
No, sir, I didn't.
But it's subsequent to that, you did learn that that was Jessica's phone.
Yes, sir, I did.
Now, as you expanded out from the crime scene, and just so the jury will understand, we've got 2, 3, 4, 5. Number 1 is the vehicle. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, as you expanded out from the vehicle, did you find anything else that was a particular to you that you noticed?
Found some burnt clothing.
Okay, and where was that?
It was at the rear of the vehicle, maybe 2 or 3 feet. There was like a little creek where water was running through, and some of the clothing were in that water and also in the grass area.
Okay. Now, describe once again for the jury, Heron Road runs east and west. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And the area where you found the car, how would you have been able to drive that car up in there?
Well, it was kind of like a little slope, so you would have to kind of give it give it a little speed to get it wedged the other way it was.
All right. Was there a drive behind the trunk of the car that led up to a gate?
That's a tree farm area, so yes, there's a drive that led up to the gate.
Okay. And the gate was behind the trunk of the car. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
So you would have to go up the drive, turn left,
And then go up.
and then go up the incline you described to get it in between that tree and the fence.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Okay. And the location where you found the burned clothing, was that in the drive leading up to the gate, or was it further west?
It was a drive more or less leading, it's kind of in the area of the gate.
Okay. And did you actually photograph that?
Yes, sir, I did.
Everything else was recovered. The only other thing that was covered at the scene, besides what's been depicted in this exhibit here and then the clothing, was there anything else recovered from the scene?
We recovered beer cans that didn't have anything to do with the case. I would have to look at the report to tell you what all was recovered that didn't have anything to do with the case.
Well, I guess Heron Road's like any old country road in Mississippi. You drive down the road, you're going to have beer cans and Coke cans and everything else laying on the side of the road.
Yes,
Is that
sir.
safe to say?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
The next, did you, or were you in contact with Barry Thompson?
Yes, sir, he's my major of investigations. Yes, sir.
And were you advising him of what you found and et cetera at the scene?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
And did you make arrangements to have the vehicle removed from the scene?
I didn't make arrangements. I think Major Thompson had made arrangements.
And was the vehicle in fact removed from the scene?
Yes, sir, it was.
And where was it taken?
It was taken to the Pinole County Sheriff Department and stored away in the garage at the Sheriff Department.
When were photographs taken of it next day in the daylight?
Yes, sir, there were.
Okay. What are we looking at in the top left photograph up here?
Looking at the front of the vehicle.
Okay. And then
It's going to be the rear.
now, what part, if we're looking at this in the picture in the top right up here, which part of this vehicle was up against the tree?
It's going to be your driver's side.
Okay. And then if we look at photograph number 3, show the jury the area that you're talking about was next to the tree.
This driver's side was next to the tree.
And then as we look at picture number 4, is this the area of the vehicle that was up against the fence that night?
That's going to be close to your fence line.
Okay. And this would be the
Passenger side, yes.
All right. And then what are actually photographs number 5 and 6?
5 and 6, just another view of the vehicle, still your driver's side and your passenger side.
Now, did you also, when you went out and looked at the vehicle, were you able to observe the interior of the vehicle?
Yes, sir, I was.
Okay. Did you look at it that night on the scene?
I did.
And did you look at it later on the next day?
Yes, sir, I did. This is still your driver's side where the driver would sit. The passenger side where the seat is more or less kind of reclined. It's in a reclined position. This is also still the passenger side seat where it's in a reclined position also. This is going to be your driver's side.
Okay. So let's go up here to photograph number 1. It appears this one is taken basically from a higher angle up looking down.
Yes, sir.
And what is this over here?
That's going to be your driver's side.
And right here.
That's your passenger side.
If we go to photograph number 2, what does this appear to be here?
That appears to be your passenger side.
Okay. And you mentioned a moment ago that the passenger seat appeared to be reclined. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Is that reflected in this photograph?
Yes, sir, it does.
Is this a better photograph of it from the other side?
Yes, sir.
Taken from the passenger side.
That's correct.
All right. You have photograph number 3. What is that?
It's going to be the driver's side also. You can tell where the passenger side seat is reclining back a little bit more than the driver's side.
Okay. Same here. What is picture number 4?
It's going to be also the drive. This is your back seat area, your driver's side, and your passenger side.
And then what is this photograph up here finally on the bottom?
The back seat where your seat has been burned out completely. Your passenger seat, which is reclined.
This appears to be taken from the back seat. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And then the passenger seat is all the way back?
That's correct.
Tend to the witness.
Good afternoon, Detective Dixon.
How you doing?
I'm doing well, sir. Tell me and explain for the jury, what area did you consider to be the crime scene on this particular occasion?
Anything within, I do an outside perimeter. I try to do at least 5 feet from where I was when I arrived, depending on the nature of the call.
On this particular occasion, what did you consider to be the crime scene?
My crime scene actually was that burnt vehicle.
Okay.
And anything on the outskirts of that burnt vehicle would be considered a crime scene.
Okay. Did this make sense? Did you set up a perimeter around the vehicle?
I put crime scene around the vehicle.
Okay.
That was my perimeter.
Let me ask you this then. There was a gate or a fence there. Do you recall that where the car was sitting?
On the passenger side, yes, sir.
Okay. Did your crime scene extend to the other side of that fence?
Not the other side, just between the vehicle and the fence itself.
So would it be fair to say that in this particular occasion, your crime scene consisted of the area from the vehicle back out to Heron Road?
Back out to Heron Road, not all the way to Heron Road. As a matter of fact, the fence, the rear of the vehicle, like I said, about 5 feet. The rear of the vehicle, if not further. The passenger side, maybe about 5 feet. I can only go so far because of the first responder vehicles that were there.
Certainly. Now, and I understand that when we're talking about the fence, we're talking about the vehicle being parked parallel to that fence. Fair to say that?
More or less, yes, sir.
Okay, so the fence would have, how much area was located between the actual vehicle and the fence?
About 3.5, 4 feet.
Okay, did you walk around in this area?
I did, yes, sir, I did.
So, and I'm just trying to ascertain, for purposes of your crime scene, you didn't actually go on the other side of that fence, did you?
I didn't, no, sir.
Did one of your investigators?
You have to check with them, sir. I said I didn't go. I don't know.
Well, Mr. Dixon, they were under your direction on this particular event.
That's correct.
Did you direct any of your investigators to investigate the area on the other
No,
side of the
sir,
fence?
I did not.
Did you, subsequent to the, I guess, December 6th, maybe December 7th, did you instruct any of your investigators to investigate the area on the other side of the fence at a subsequent date?
No, sir, I didn't.
Okay. Now, so you marked off the area with crime scene tape, and then you began to, I believe you indicated that your protocol is to observe, mark, and then take photos.
Observe, mark, take photos, then start collecting your evidence.
Right, and collecting the evidence.
Or whatever you think might be evidence.
Certainly. Now, you indicated that you collected several items, and did you actually authored a report on this particular occasion?
I did what now?
You authored a report, did you not?
I did write a report, yes, sir,
Okay.
I did.
When did you write that report?
I wrote the report a few days after the incident.
Okay. You indicated that on the report, it says among the items collected was an LG cell phone and cover.
Yes, sir.
And you collected the burned clothing, and I believe you've testified to that.
Yes, sir.
And you collected 2 lighters, beer cans, and a cigarette butt.
Yes, sir.
Okay. While you were out at the crime scene, you actually had a good look at the vehicle to the extent possible in the light that you had.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And did you actually take a look at the inside of the vehicle?
I did, yes, sir.
Did you actually remove any items from the inside of the vehicle?
No, sir, I didn't remove anything from inside the vehicle.
Okay. Now, do you recall any items being inside the vehicle?
Everything was pretty much burned, so it was kind of hard to tell.
Okay. Do you recall whether or not there was a can of Freon in there?
No, sir, I don't recall.
Okay. Turn the window, Charlotte.
Redirect.
Your Honor, I'm through with Detective Dixon. He may be filing his keys.
All right, Detective, you're finally excused, sir. You may return to duty or you may stay in the courtroom. Your choice.
Thank you, sir.
They call you next week.
Tell me your name, please.
Jerry King.
All right, Mr. King, on December 6, 2014, where did you live?
124 Main Street in Cortland.
And were you aware, I'm sorry, on December 8th of 2014, were you still living at 124 Main Street of Cortland?
Yes, sir.
Were you aware of an event that had occurred down the road involving Jessica Chambers a couple days before?
Yes, sir.
And were you in fact, excuse me, what were you doing that particular afternoon?
I was strolling my daughter down the road.
How old's your daughter?
She's 4 now, so she was probably 1.
As you were strolling your daughter down the road, what road are we talking about?
Main Street
Cortland?
in Cortland, yes, sir.
Did you see anything laying off the side of the road on Main Street in Cortland on December 8, 2014?
Yes, sir. I happened to see a pink rope in a ditch that had something shiny on it.
And what did it end up? Did you pick it up?
Yes, sir.
What did it end up being?
It happened to be some keys.
And at the time, who did you hand the keys to?
I had handed them to my daughter as I was strolling back to the house.
How far is your house from where you picked these keys up?
2 houses down.
So pretty close.
Yes, sir.
And when you arrived at home, who did you live with?
I lived with myself, but my girlfriend also stayed with me at the time.
And who was your girlfriend?
Mary Time.
Did Mary notice anything on those keys that
Yes, sir. She
After we had sat there for a minute, she had noticed the little symbol on it had Ben Chambers Auto on it.
And who is Ben Chambers?
Jessica's dad.
And did you know that Jessica was involved in the event a couple days before?
Yes, sir.
And so, what did that tell you?
We immediately called the sheriff department, and Tyler Mills had came out.
Do you know Tyler Mills personally from Cortland?
Yes, sir.
And did you contact Tyler?
Yes, sir.
And Tyler did in fact come to your residence?
Yes, sir.
Did you turn over the keys to Tyler Mills?
Yes, sir.
And did the sheriff department ultimately take DNA samples from you, your daughter, and your girlfriend?
Yes, sir.
I'm going to show you an item of evidence that's previously been marked for identification as item number 2. Is this the item that you retrieved off the side of Main Street?
Yes, sir.
And you refer to a tag on the keys. What tag are you talking about?
The Benz Auto Diesel in repair.
And what color is that tag?
Green.
And you knew Ben as who?
As her dad.
And are these the keys that you picked up and turned over to Tyler Mills?
Yes, sir.
Did Investigator Mills ask you where you found these keys?
Yes, sir. And he asked me and where they were located, and we took them back, and I approximately showed him where I had picked them up at.
Approximately how far off the side of the road did you find the keys?
Maybe probably about 5 feet.
And did you actually place the keys back where you found them?
Almost. I mean, I can't say it was in the exact spot, but it was close to it.
But again, how far is this from your house?
2 houses down.
Are you aware of the area on Heron Road where Jessica was burned?
I'm pretty familiar with it.
And you know where you found the keys?
Yes, sir.
How do you get from the area where Jessica was burned to the keys? Is it a direct route, or are there multiple ways to get there?
It's a straight shot. It's a straight shot from my house. It's just a straight shot.
And if you go from where Jessica was burned to the keys and keep walking, what do you run into?
My house.
And then past your house?
The fire station.
Is that downtown Cortland?
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, 10 of the witness.
Cross.
Thank you, Mr. King. No further questions, Your Honor.
All right. Redirect.
When you're walking back to your house, which would be from the direction of the crime scene back to your house, is that right?
Direct.
What side of the road is it on?
It would be on your left hand side.
Left-hand side. Is that going to be the north side of the road? Do you know? Okay.
It's the only house on there. Well, there's a trailer. There's a trailer down before you get up the hill, and that's the only brick house that just been built right there.
This jury is going to ultimately see that area, but you gave him an approximate location where you found the keys, correct?
Correct.
And you know it was in front of what?
It was in front of that house.
In that little dipper gully.
Yes, sir.
And did you place the keys there for Tyler Mills to take pictures?
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, that's all the questions I have of Mr. King. I would ask he be finally released. There you go.
All right, sir, you may leave, and you can either leave the courthouse or you may stay in the courtroom if you please.
Thank you, sir.
They call you next witness.
Tyler Mills. State your name for the record.
Tyler Mills.
On December the 8th of 2014, that would be on a Monday, were you working that day?
I was
And where were you located working?
at the sheriff's department at the time.
And did you take a call at the sheriff's department?
Yes, sir.
And who was the caller?
Mary Tyner.
Did you know who Mary Tyner was?
I did.
And did you know Mary Tyner to be the girlfriend of someone?
I did.
Who was that person?
Jerry Lee King.
Mr. King stated he knew you because you'd pulled him over a few times.
I have.
Did you know where Mr. King lived?
I did.
And what were you advised in that call?
That they had found a set of keys on the side of Main Street in Cortland.
What was the significance of that set of keys?
They believed it was Jessica Chambers' keys because it had a Benz auto and diesel like key tag on it.
And did you strike out to Cortland?
I did.
Did you went to Cortland?
Yes, sir.
And did you go to 124 Main Street?
I did.
And who did you make contact at 124 Main Street?
Made contact with Mary Tyner and Jerry Lee King.
Did they also have a child with them?
Yes, sir.
And what did they show you when you arrived?
A set of keys that was sitting in a paper towel on the hood of a car.
And did you observe the keys?
I did.
Did you collect the keys?
I did.
Did you contact anybody regarding the phone call and you going to Main Street with the sheriff's department?
I kind of let Major Barry Thompson know.
And did he ask you to go get them?
He did.
So tell me how you, when you locate the keys and you believe them to be an item of evidence, how do you collect them?
Have latex gloves on, and it's hard to what kind of item it is with the keys. I put them inside of a plastic evidence bag.
Do you also have paper evidence bags?
Yes, sir, I do.
And is that what you did in this particular case?
I do. Yes, sir.
Once you collected the keys, did you question Jerry King about where he picked them up?
Yes, sir. I asked him where he had located them at.
And was he able to show you where he located them?
In approximately vicinity, yes, sir.
And I believe, how far was that location from his home approximately?
It's a couple houses down.
Not far or far away?
Not far at all.
Okay. And what was, in the area where the keys were found, were they located on the north side of the road or the south side of the road?
Probably the north side.
And was there anything around the keys? Were there any structures around the keys?
Just a house right behind where the keys were located.
Where were the keys located in regards to the house?
Right outside they're right outside the road, right to the edge of a little small ditch in the front yard of the house.
In the front yard of the house?
Yes, sir.
And did you have Mr. King point that area out?
Yes, sir.
And were the keys placed back at that location?
Yes, sir.
And did you take 5 photographs of differing angles and, say, zooms?
Yes, sir.
Will you actually explain these 5 photographs for the jury?
Yes, sir. This photograph right here is taken at the intersection of Main Street and Heron Sub and Portland. You see this driveway right here. Just on the other side of the driveway is approximately where the keys were located.
Before you move on, the view that we're looking at right now, is that looking towards the crime scene where Jessica was found?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
If you come, this photograph right here is actually standing in the driveway that's pictured in this stage scene, this picture right here, facing back towards the crime scene. So the keys in this small ditch right here with the leaves in it. This is taken from the road. As you can see, the keys are laying right here. The tree, the house is just right here to the side.
You can actually see the propane tank that belongs to the house?
Yes, sir. And the backyard fence that goes in the backyard. This is just a scene taken from about chest level, picture taken down, and this is a close-up picture of the keys in the same location as right there.
Let me ask you, the pictures you described as picture number 1 and picture number 2, are they taken from the same angle?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Taken from right here, chest level, looking down. Taken.
Well, I'm saying east to west or west to east?
Yes,
taken
sir.
from the
Same
direction.
location, same direction.
Agent Mills, once you collected the keys and photographed the keys, who did you take them to?
Major Barry Thompson.
And were they turned over to him at that point?
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, I'll send it to the witness.
Attending the witness, Your Honor.
When you collect evidence, like you did these keys, do you use the same process that you do to collect dope?
Yes, sir.
You collect it, bag it, and turn it in.
Yes, sir.
Is that doing your job?
Yes, sir.
When you went out there to get these keys, they were located at Jerry King's home.
Yes, sir.
Was it important to you to find out where he found them?
Yes, sir.
Is that what you did?
Yes, sir.
And was he able to describe in detail where he found them?
Yes, sir.
And so you took pictures of the keys in that area.
Yes, sir.
I don't have any further questions. I would ask this witness be finally excused.
All right. Officer, you find excuse. Thank you. Thanks, sir.
State your name for the record, please.
Barry Thompson.
Mr. Thompson, where are you currently employed and in what capacity?
I'm the major over the investigative division for the Panola County, Mississippi Sheriff's Office.
And you did have some involvement at the beginning portion of the homicide of Jessica Chambers. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Now, that testimony we will get into tomorrow as I've instructed you, okay?
Yes.
Now, you also understand that there are numerous locations during the course of this investigation that have significance. Is that correct?
Yes.
And you understand our intention to field trip, I call it, or bus the jury to those locations.
Yes.
And are you familiar with the area of Cortland?
I am.
Are you a longtime resident of that area?
39 plus years. Yes.
Is that as long as you've been alive?
Yes.
And you're familiar with each one of the areas that you're aware we intend to take the jury to?
I am.
And we have prepared an aerial map that actually has some significant areas already pointed out. Can you actually identify this aerial map?
Yes, sir. That is an exploded view of the Cortland community,
Your Honor,
covering Highway 51, the main street in Cortland out to Heron Road.
and you're familiar with this area and certainly the points on this map.
I am.
Major Thompson, I've actually produced an exhibit previously marked as exhibit number 20 for the jury. There's certain areas I want to ask you about, the first of which is actually not on this map. Are you aware of where the car is located that was burned on December 6, 2014?
I am.
And where is that car located?
It's in the impound lot at the Panola County Sheriff's Office.
And since December the 6th or December the 7th of 2014, when it was moved to the impound lot at the Sheriff's Department, has that car left there?
No, sir.
Also, are you aware of the area of the crime scene in this case?
I am.
And where is that area located?
It is outside the actual city limits or town limits of the town of Cortland. It is on Heron Road, a rural county road in Panola County.
And is the entirety of Heron Road located in the same jurisdiction?
It is.
And what state is that located in?
State of Mississippi,
And what county is that located in?
Panola County.
Will you point out, I know it's already marked, but would you point out for the jury where the crime scene is located on Heron Road?
It's at the bottom left corner of the map right here at this red dot.
And approximately a quarter mile away, is there a location where you're aware that a set of keys were collected?
That's correct. At the time, Agent Mills, now Detective Mills, collected a set of keys right there on Heron Street.
And when you leave the crime scene, as the jury will be leaving, and go to the location of the keys, and keep traveling in the same direction, what do you come into?
We'll come into the physical township of Cortland.
And there's some railroad tracks in Cortland.
Yes.
Okay. And right next to the railroad tracks, this building, what is it actually?
Cortland Volunteer Fire Department.
Now, we're going to take the jury to an area that we've referred to as an access road at Daniel Cole's residence. Are you aware of that particular road?
I am.
And would you point out Daniel Cole's residence for the jury in this case?
Daniel Cole's residence. Part of this may actually be on top of it, but I believe it's going to be right in this area right here.
And that particular road, Daniel Cole's already testified. Where does it go to right up the hill?
It comes out at the back of Otto Sanford subdivision. It's a rural subdivision off of Highway 51.
And who of significance lived in Otto Sanford subdivision during December of 2014?
Quentin Tellis' sister, Ray Gann.
And I believe her name is Shanika Williams.
That's correct.
And her residence is also pointed out in Otto Sanford subdivision. Would you point out her residence for the jury?
It'll be this red dot right here.
And can you actually see that access road or the outline of that access road on this map?
Somewhat, you'll see where it travels through the woods right here. It'll be this dark, this opening that it'll be shaded in this picture. It's an aerial photo that shows the shade.
And finally, we're going to take them to an area that they've already heard as M&M Grocery or Gurley's.
Yeah.
And obviously it's already marked, but point out M&M Grocery for the jury.
It's the red dot sitting right on top of M&M Grocery parking lot, right here at the top right corner.
And the last place is going to be the residence of Quentin Tellis.
Yes,
Would you point that out for the jury?
it is just south and east of that red dot right here. In this lower portion right here will be this red dot will be the location of the Tellis residence.
Now, just for the jury's sake, and certainly to eliminate being at these scenes for a lengthy amount of time, going back to the impound lot at the sheriff's department, the car is there.
Yes,
And the jury will be able to view the car as it existed on December the 6th of 2014.
yes,
As to the crime scene, we've heard testimony about a car being wedged in an area of the crime scene. Are you able to identify that area for the jury?
yes. I will be able to point that area out. You can still see the burning on the trees, and there's a fence there that's still in the same location it was. There's some small trees that are in the same location there was. You may actually see some scarring on those trees where the door was forced into those trees while the car was being moved.
Well, let me ask you, the fence and the gate are still present.
Yes,
I believe there's been mention to a sapling that was outside the driver's door. Is that particular tree still there
yes.
as of today?
It was there the last time I was there, yes.
And right up the road, the location of the keys, are you going to be able to point out the location of where the keys were located and photographed?
Yes,
And moving on to Daniel Cole's residence, you're actually going to be able to point out Daniel Cole's residence for the jury, as well as the entrance to that access road that goes up the hill.
yes,
In Otto Sanford subdivision, or at Ray Gann's house, can you identify where that access road, I'm gonna call it, dumps into Otto Sanford subdivision, or ends into Otto Sanford subdivision?
yes,
And were you able to identify the area of Ray Gann's home in connection with where that road comes out?
yes,
Finally, at M&M's grocery store, are you aware that there was a camera at M&M's that actually pointed in the direction of the Tellis home?
yeah. There was a closed circuit TV system at the time that was there. It had several cameras on it, and one of those cameras did point in what would be a southeasterly direction that would cover that portions of that residence and driveway.
And are you going to point out that particular camera for the jury?
Yes,
And are they going to be able to walk into and through M&M's convenience store?
yes, sir.
And finally, as we move down to the residence of Quentin Tellis, are there multiple areas of significance at Quentin Tellis' home?
Yes, sir. There should be 3 that we will talk about.
Well, first of all, I'm going to ask you, off of Highway 51, is there a main driveway that goes to Quentin Tellis' residence?
Yes,
And on that driveway, how many structures are located there?
I believe it's 2. It's going to be a shed out front and then a mobile home behind it.
Okay, well, explain to me what you mean by a shed out front.
There's what I would call a small storage shed. As you go in the driveway to your left, there sits a small storage shed there. And then behind that is a parking area and then a mobile home.
And is there also a driveway just south of the driveway you just mentioned?
Yes, sir. That'll be the driveway here.
And is there we refer to as an area south of the home, but a grassy area that is significant to this investigation?
Yes, sir. When we get into further testimony, it will become of a significance. Yes, sir.
And you're going to point out that particular area for the jury to view tomorrow.
Yes.
Your Honor, for the purposes of examination here today and laying the foundation for the areas that we're going to go to tomorrow, that's all the state has.
All right. Mr. Thompson, you can stand down, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, the way this is playing out here, the next presentation of evidence will be in the morning, where you'll be transported down to these various points that have been identified to you